Hi, it's Lee, and if this is your first time here on my channel, well, I am a very maximalist decorator. Every dream address I've released so far has had very full builds and pretty much every tile covered on the island exterior. I pay a lot of attention to the small details like gaps between items, how items look layered next to each other, and the placement of items throughout a specific area. While my decorating style has grown a lot since I first started playing Animal Crossing, one thing remained consistent: every tile must be filled. This no tile left behind approach was first introduced to me by one of my favorite Animal Crossing content creators, Sparksby, and I have kept that idea with me all throughout the years. However, at some point it does get a little draining to constantly think about every specific tile, and in the end it did make me feel a little burnt out. This is exactly how I was feeling right as I was finishing Indiglo. While the island is one of my favorites, I definitely placed so many items on the mainland, and it felt like one of the fullest islands I have ever built. Thus, I wanted to start a new island where I didn't stress too much on the tiny little details and where I spent less time decorating overall. And that's how Thistle began. I wanted to take it easy, but at the same time challenge myself to try a new decorating style that was a complete 180 to what I was used to. However, this idea was way easier said than done. My first time trying out minimalism was super difficult. I often found myself getting the urge to fill every space and cover every gap, and it was definitely not as easy as I thought it would be. I'll just put one more thing on this cliff, I swear. Just one last thing. No, one more thing. one more thing. There's just a gap there that I want to hide. We're off to a great start. Oh, I lied. Another thing. Wait, let me just put like one more thing on the cliff. See, I'm leaving tiles open. It's minimalism. No, how do people do this? Like, genuinely. That was literally the worst thing ever. As the days went by and I started to decorate the main island, I started seeing the more positive light of minimalism. Builds became so much easier to finish. Literally, the amount of time it took for me to finish a build was so much shorter, and the overall stress of overthinking builds pretty much went away. I was starting to get used to leaving tiles behind, but I knew that this wasn't something that I was going to be able to do for a while. I found myself itching for that fullness again, and I already had it ingrained in my head that I did not enjoy minimal decorating, so here we are now. Because of the release of Slumber Islands, I thought it would be fun to transform one of the builds I had on this island into a fuller, more maximal build just to satisfy that craving of building something that was really full. I wanted to take a break from the simpler decorating style and go back to my roots. So now, enjoy this short summary of my time on stream building a very full pumpkin patch, and pay attention to the things I do while decorating a more maximal build. So this is the build that we're going to be transforming on the Slumber Island today. This is the pumpkin patch that we built like 2 weeks ago or something. But essentially the goal is to make this pumpkin patch full in the Slumber Island. I chose this build in particular because unfortunately we can't have any of the villager homes on the Slumber Island. We can only have the resident home over here on the right side, so that's why I decided to choose this build. Also because this build isn't too complex, it's literally just a bunch of pumpkins scattered around. So I think we don't really have to worry about adding too much, just filling up the space really and adding more stuff to the background to make it, you know, that full maximalist decorating style that we all know I love to do. So that's the goal for today. Like, even though this is a minimal style, I still do really like how this turned out. I feel like the weeds are definitely helping that case for me, but I don't know, I just like that even though we still see some grass, it's still very clear that it's a pumpkin patch. And yeah, we'll see how we go on the Slumber Island. Okay, so the good thing is that the house is going to stay the same, right? We're not going to change the look or anything. The only thing is placing the thing. The placements probably are not going to be as exact to the island, but we're just going to make it close enough, you know. So first things first, I feel like we should name this island. So our default name is Thistle, right? But because this is going to be like the maximal version of Thistle, what about like Maximisal? No, it does fit. Maximisal. Maximisal, isn't that the funniest thing? Oh my gosh. Okay, I did include like a little screenshot of the pumpkin patch just so I can kind of tell if things are kind of aligned. I think the house should move back one tile and maybe to the right a little bit as well. And of course we're not gonna have Wolfgang's house on the left side, unfortunately, but I feel like we can just, you know, replicate it using some storefronts. Okay, I think that is the frame. Yes. Okay, nice. And then somewhere over here will be like a storefront combo just to replicate the house. As for like the pathing and like the placement of the weeds and stuff, I feel like it doesn't have to be exact because, you know, we're trying to make this as full as we can, so I feel like it makes sense for the build to like not have the exact same layout. Dude, it's been so long since I've done like a maximal build, like I feel like I don't even know where to start. So this theoretically is Wolfgang's home. For the purposes of this slumber island, I feel like being a little bit extra and doing some cliffs. I think that'll just help like add more to the background. Low-key, if I wanted to be really extra, I would do like a third tier for this cliff, but I really don't feel like it. Also, I don't think I'm gonna fill up every tile on this cliff just because I'm lazy, and you can't really see it from the frame anyway, so it's like, girl, bye, you know what I mean? That looks so weird, but you know what? I don't even care. There you go. See, now that we've added the cliff, the background looks a little bit fuller. Yeah, we're definitely gonna add some trees and stuff, but I'm also seeing like a lot of giant vines, so that's gonna be pretty fun. Okay, so now I'm just gonna plant some tree spots here. There's no pattern to this at all. Literally no pattern. I'm just doing whatever. Wait, also, if I pull up the map, will it say maximal? Oh, it does. Oh, why can't you just go in the hole? Like, come on, you tree. Just go in the hole. Okay, but see how full the background already looks because we've added trees? Yes. Compared to the very bare, minimal style of the current build. Fun part, filling this cliff up. That's definitely one thing I do not miss about full decorating, is having to cliff decorate. But honestly, it's fine. It'll turn out really nice at the end, so worth it. No, it needs to be like something taller. Needs to be something taller. It needs to be something taller. It needs to be something taller. Sorry. Okay. I want to check how we're doing though. Is it looking full from the front? Brilliant. You can't see it. Can't really see anything. Ooh, do you know what? What if I did like a silo right here? Yes, I like that. See, now the left side looks really full because we have the really tall silo, and then the hardwood tree just like covers like all the gaps right there. Okay, so something I'm looking at right now that I'm trying to fix is, do you see right there where we have the tall cedar tree? But there's like nothingness right here between the cedar tree and then the hardwood tree on the right. I want there's something to be tall, like in between that. That's what I'm trying to fix, but unfortunately I don't think that's possible. Okay, let me see if I move that round topiary to the side. Oh, now you can see it peeking out just a tiny bit. The little round head of the round topiary. See, now it's like shaped a little bit better now. Okay, like I think I kind of like that. The stacked bags. But now that just looks like so weird. That looks weird. Oh, but see, it's like bridging the gap between the cedar and the hardwood now. I think I might prefer that over the stacked ball crates, because then it doesn't look too freakishly tall. Yes, it does feel kind of good to do maximal building again. The only thing is now I'm getting to that problem where it's just like, oh, what do I put? Whereas in the minimal style, the question I would always come across is this too full? Is this too much? But now going back, it's just like, oh, now what do I put? So it's like both have their pros and cons, really. I still enjoy the very maximal style, so it's alright. Honestly, kind of good. It's kind of good. There's still some gaps that need to be filled right there. If y'all see the sky right there. Yeah, it's because the fencing is not tall enough in the back. Now there's no gapage there. Nice. Well, at least from this angle. Do not tilt the camera or else you're going to see the gapage. I usually don't start with the fillers at all, but I think now it looks really good with the background. So this pumpkin patch moment, honestly a lot of just pumpkins scattered everywhere. Now the thing is, I don't know if I want to add like the dirt pathing underneath the pumpkins or if I want to keep it no dirt. Okay, I also do want to put that's tree stump right there. Okay, I think that looks kind of correct. So now I'm feeling like to make it more like maximal looking, I feel like adding the dirt path would look better underneath the pumpkins. Is that like enough space for the pumpkin patch maybe? Now let's start planting some pumpkins. This should be easy because I feel like the majority of them will just have the 3 variations. Do you know what? I don't like this right here. We're definitely going to mix this up with some white pumpkins in a little bit. I'm just going to spam these with green ones just so I can see how the layout is looking like. Feels like there should be some space in between the patches, because what's the point of doing different patches, right? And patch shapes if they're connected. Okay. Maybe. One thing I did like about doing the random patches or like random style in the minimal version is that it just looks prettier in my opinion, because here it's all very like not like structured, you know, but I mean I guess that's kind of how pumpkin patches are, right? It might look better if we start putting in some white ones. Oh wait, with the white pumpkins mixed in, it actually looks kind of nice. Now I kind of want to add some fencing maybe. Oh, the question is like which one though? I feel like the white one will look nice too, especially since our house is kind of like a bit lighter. Might be nice to have a bit of contrast from the green pumpkins at least. Actually, like the black ones might be better. I mean already it's definitely looking way fuller than the one in our picture, which makes me want to believe that we are doing minimalism correctly. And then because this is gravitate, I want to add some socks. Crochet socks. Perf. I've been so used to not putting or not having to put codes on like underneath everything that I'm like kind of forgetting that that's what we do. Wow, I'm actually getting like a little winded from doing maximal decorating again. Isn't that crazy? It's actually a lot of work to fill every tile. I still love it, don't get me wrong. I do love it still, but it is a ton of work. At this point, I'm about to just start spamming weeds. When in doubt, weed it out. Wait, that could be interpreted wrong, but... Ugh, and we still have this part to do, like, get me out. Although this part is just gonna be mostly paths, so it's not gonna be too shabby. So it's basically just gonna curve around this way. Definitely just gonna curve around this way. And honestly, I feel like just like adding a pond here or something just because it takes up space. Would it look weird if I put a silo right here? Yeah, I don't mind the silo right there actually. But I do mind this tree. Also, I'm like low-key sick of this lighting. This is like the 7 a.m. lighting that I actually do like. Ooh, see? Now you can see more of the details in the back. That's why I love this lighting versus like the 5 a.m. where it kind of eats with this lighting. No, let's just stick to this lighting for now. Okay, the gapping right here. The gappage. The Gapatron. The Gapatron 3000, okay? Like, a freaking Gapatron 300,000, 500 million, billion, gazillion, 900 million, zillion, 2,531. Or keeping on, keeping on the keeping on. Sorry, I have no idea. We definitely need to include more gravitate elements, I think. So I feel like putting like maybe a patchwork chair, maybe some cat plushies on this side as well. Although technically this is supposed to be Wolfgang's home, but you know, we'll just pretend it is. Just pretend. Shh. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the fencing without the little customization thing. And then we're gonna do simple panels. Okay, wait. Well, like cooking. Perhaps a little cooking is happening. Just like a little bit. It's such a difference. Like if you see the picture, that's like our minimal pumpkin patch. And then right here we have our like very full maximal pumpkin patch. So that's kind of crazy to see that like the difference. It is kind of refreshing though to go back to the more full decorating style after being stuck. Or I wouldn't say stuck, but like, you know what I mean. This is the only downside of filling every tile. Is just like, just start to use the same items over and over. I actually don't like the cliff being visible like that, but I mean, maybe it's okay. Doesn't it look like a face a little bit? It's like you got the 2 eyes and then the nose. I know we said to keep it for the memes, but I can't. It's just the gaps. The gaps. It's too many gaps. Yes, here's the finished pumpkin patch build. Yes. It's actually crazy, kind of like, you know, looking at the before image and then looking at the after. And honestly, I'm like really happy with this build. So here where I'm running is the pumpkin patch. Instead of having like random little pumpkins everywhere, we did like small square / rectangles / circles of pumpkins, and we surrounded it with some fencing, lots of weeds obviously, and some farming materials like the shovels, the hand carts, stacked bags, and also included some bunnies around. Honestly, pretty cute. Down here is just some filler decorations, and then over here as well we have some fillers. I wanted to include a tractor, so that's why that's there. Honestly, pretty cute. Wait, there's an open tile. You know what? A barrel. Brilliant. Okay, anyway, so yeah, this is all of the pumpkin patch right here. And then on the left side, we just have some natural fillers. Obviously needed to include a clothesline for the gravitate theme. We have a little pond, and then we have a mama duck and, you know, her child. And then here is supposed to represent Wolfgang's home, because unfortunately we cannot have villager homes on Slumber Islands. And we gave him a little homage to his real yard, which has some fish and chips. And then over here we have some windmills and other farming related materials to fill up the back. That's pretty much it. Honestly, like this time of year, like the late September, early October time of year is actually so good, because that's when you have these like really pretty weeds, and then also the trees are starting to, you know, get a little bit more yellow. I think it's a really nice time of year. Cutie cutes. I love it. Okay, and now let's do like 7 a.m. lighting. This is my favorite lighting, definitely, because now you can see more of the actual cliff that we built. Before it was just shadow, but now we can see, you know, the silos in the background, and then all the trees to put in the background as well. I think it looks really nice. It's honestly kind of sad that this is just a Slumber Island, because this is actually such a good build. Or I'm like really proud of this build, rather. Even though it was kind of a struggle at first, trying to figure out, you know, how we want the pumpkins to be laid out, and trying to get the placement of everything kind of close to how it is on the main island. But honestly, I really like this. See, now you can even see the details in the back. The random farming materials up there, just to fill in the gaps. And yeah, even though filling in the gap isn't my favorite thing to do, it's actually really worth it at the end. I will say that, you know, because I have been doing like more minimal decorating, I will say that I have gone to appreciate the minimal style more. And I've also been more kind of like aware of where I place my items, just to make things a little bit more full. Yeah, so I definitely like learned a lot from doing a more minimal island, but I can guarantee I will not be doing this again. I will not be doing another minimal island again. Maybe we can do like, you know, minimalizing a maximal build, basically the opposite of what we did today. But yeah, this is the pumpkin patch area that we built up on the Slumber Island. So you can see it's like very flat. The pumpkins, instead of having 3 crops, they only have 2 or 1. And yeah, we don't have the cliff in the background, just to keep it a little bit more open. And yeah, it's actually crazy the difference. That's the Slumber Island we built. This is now. It's also kind of crazy what, like, you know, not having the dirt patches underneath the pumpkins does. Because it just makes it more like open, I think. I mean, I still do like this build. This is definitely my favorite build of the island, but I still would prefer the more maximal build that we did on the Slumber Island. And there we have it. Going through this experience of building up a minimal island and then going back to maximalism has definitely allowed me to think more about what's good and bad in both decorating styles. So let's dig into a little bit more, starting with minimalism. Now, with a simpler decorating style, it's really important to carefully think about your builds and item placement, since we have less room and availability to do so. If you have been decorating for a while and have gotten the hang of your decorating style already, doing a minimal island can be a good good challenge for you to elevate your decorating and take it beyond what you're comfortable with. It could be an easy challenge because building is so much easier and stress-free. Since you aren't expected to spam areas with items, some few items are all you need to create a meaningful build. Furthermore, you might find yourself completing this island very quickly. As of now, I am almost completely done with thistle, and it only took me under 20 days of actually picking up the game, while my previous island Indiglo took me more than 30. Now, if you prefer a more natural style of decorating, minimalism works really well with natural islands, just because you can leave large patches of grass empty and it would still look very good with your builds. And finally, your island will be lag-free on the regular Switch. I am honestly lucky enough to have a Switch 2, so this one doesn't really apply to me at all, but I know a good majority of people playing this game still have the regular Switch, and we know it doesn't take much to lag that console up. Now, on the other side, minimalism does have its not so good features. For one, because you're gonna have way more empty space, builds can feel a little lacking in detail. There have been times when I was decorating thistle where I wanted to add more details to a specific build, but unfortunately I had to hold back because the area was already looking too full. And so this became a constant concern of mine. It was no longer, oh, what should I put here, but rather, is this too much? And thus it can be very restricting for someone who is used to building more full areas. Additionally, if you are not used to decorating natural themes, then this style might not be for you as it excels with more natural islands. And lastly, you will have gaps in between items, and not every item will have a nice backdrop, unfortunately. As someone who is obsessed with having no gaps between items, this was especially hard for me, and I found myself still trying to fill in gaps and thus losing somewhat of that minimal feel in some areas. Now let's talk about maximalism. Even though it is my preferred decorating style, I will be totally unbiased and give y'all the pros and cons in a fair way. Now, one benefit to a more maximal style is that builds are way more detailed, and thus completing a build can feel all the more satisfying. I personally felt this when I finished my maximal pumpkin patch, since all the hard work into thinking what item should go where paid off when I was able to capture the full frame at the end. Moreover, since the builds are more detailed, the overall island feels more complete. Every item feels intentional, and fillers add even more to the space. In this way, you are also able to create more stories on a fuller island. You have the opportunity to add so much lore with the decorations you place and add more to the overall vibe of your island. Furthermore, because there are more items on a maximal build, gaps pretty much don't exist if you place the items correctly. I was actually thinking about doing a decorating tips video that covers that, so let me know if y'all are interested. And finally, this style works with any theme. I've done many islands before with more structured towns and natural overviews, and both, although very different in theme, look amazing in this style. While I do love maximalist decorating, it does have its own drawbacks as well. Now let's start with the most obvious one, which is the lag that you will encounter if you are not playing on the Switch 2. Luckily, I don't have this problem anymore, but I did always despise it when the lag started to form on my islands, so make sure that you are prepared for that when you take on this style. Depending on how you build your islands, pathways can also feel a little bit too constricted and narrow. I've seen very full islands where the path isn't very clear and you're not really able to run through them properly, so I always make sure that my paths are walkable on my islands. Because this style does require more items, it also requires more treasure island trips, which aren't always fun. There have been many times in the past where I get so close to finishing the island, but I just get so lazy to go to another treasure island that I just work with what I have. And because of all the items you need and all the treasure island trips you take, these islands take way more time to complete. If you can't afford to spend multiple hours every day playing Animal Crossing, then it might take you several months at least to complete your island, which means you'll be stuck looking at the same island for even that much longer. And finally, builds can start to feel repetitive, or you might find yourself running out of ideas faster. You will also be using a lot of the same filler items over and over again, and thus it can be hard to make every area feel different. With that being said, there is definitely no right or wrong way to decorate. You can choose minimal, maximal, or even somewhere in between. What is important is that you are happy with what you've built and you are happy building it in the process. While it was fun for me to build up this minimal island, I can confidently say that I will no longer do a complete island with this style. Although it was very refreshing at the start, it did start to make me a little uncomfortable at the end since I wasn't able to decorate how I wanted, and I felt very restricted with my item placement. I also worried a lot about what others would think of my build, since my island is definitely on the fuller side of minimalism. Thus, I'm gonna stick to what I do best and feel the most comfortable with doing. Now, speaking of Thistle, I will be having the island tour video up on my channel sometime next week, so look out for that. If you are interested in what island I decorate next, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitch. I will be starting a new spring core island this month, and I'm very excited to get going, so join me for the ride. Let me know what y'all think about the two different decorating styles, and feel free to share if you think I missed any key points between either of them. I am very curious to read your opinions. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.